The arrival. Captain Elara Marks stood on the bridge of the Erebus, her gaze fixed on the swirling mass of stars beyond the viewport. As a seasoned officer of the United Earth Fleet, she had seen her fair share of strange and deadly things, but nothing could have prepared her for the mission ahead. A faint hum filled the air as the ship's AI, Aegis, spoke up. "Captain, we are approaching the coordinates provided by the Thailand Union. Their representative ship, Thulzar, will be within hailing distance in 2 minutes." "Understood, Aegis," Elara replied, her voice steady despite the anxiety gnawing at her. She had read the briefings, knew what to expect, or thought she did. The Thailand were an enigmatic species, renowned for their advanced technology and mysterious ways. They had never before shown interest in humans, let alone extended an invitation to discuss an alliance. The mere fact that they had contacted Earth directly had sent shockwaves through the Federation. Elara's second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Tobias Riker, approached her side, his dark eyes gleaming with a mixture of excitement and worriness. "Think they're sizing us up for a trade deal, or something more sinister?" "Hard to say," Elara replied, crossing her arms. "But we need to be prepared for anything. The Thailand aren't known for their charity." A light on the console blinked, signaling an incoming transmission. Aegis patched it through, and the image of a Thailand representative appeared on the main screen. The alien was tall and slender, with elongated limbs and skin that shimmered like polished obsidian. Its eyes, large and luminescent, fixed on Elara with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. "Greetings, Captain Marks of Earth." The Thailand's voice was melodic yet cold, like the chime of distant bells. "I am Consul Zorath of the Thailand Union. We have much to discuss." "Greetings, Consul Zorath," Elara replied, maintaining a calm facade. "We are honored by your invitation. What brings the Thailand to seek an audience with humanity?" Zorath's gaze flickered, an alien gesture that might have been equivalent to a smirk. "We have been observing your species for some time, Captain. Your resilience intrigues us. We wish to better understand the capabilities of your kind, particularly in matters of survival and combat." Elara exchanged a quick glance with Riker, who arched an eyebrow in surprise. "Our capabilities?" she asked, her tone cautious. "What exactly do you want to know?" Zorath leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "Everything." The single word hung in the air, sending a chill down Elara's spine. She had expected curiosity, perhaps even suspicion, but this felt different. It felt like they were being scrutinized, evaluated for something beyond a mere alliance. Before she could respond, Zorath continued, "We have prepared a series of trials to assess the extent of your species' abilities. If you succeed, the Thailand Union will consider an alliance with Earth. Fail, and you may find yourselves obsolete." Elara's heart pounded in her chest. This was no ordinary diplomatic mission. It was a test, one that could determine the future of humanity. She knew she had to play along, at least until she could figure out the Thailand's true intentions. "We accept your challenge, Consul Zorath," she said, her voice steady despite the storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. "But know this, humans do not take kindly to being underestimated." Zorath's eyes gleamed with a strange light, and for a moment, Elara thought she saw something like respect in the alien's gaze. "We shall see, Captain Marks. We shall see." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Riker let out a low whistle. Well, that was ominous. Elara nodded, her mind racing. "Prepare the crew for combat readiness, Riker. We need to be ready for whatever they throw at us." As Riker moved to relay the orders, Elara turned back to the viewport, staring at the distant stars with a mix of determination and dread. The Thailand were about to learn just what it meant to face a Deathworlder, and she would make sure they never forgot it. The trials. The Thulzar was nothing like the Erebus. As Elara and her crew were escorted aboard the Thailand vessel, they marveled at the sleek, organic architecture that seemed to pulse with life. The walls were a deep, iridescent blue, and the air was filled with a faint, sweet scent that was both soothing and disorienting. "Stay sharp," Ilara whispered to her team as they were led down a long corridor. The Axe Island guards, tall and silent, flanked them on either side, their presence a constant reminder of the stakes. Finally, they were brought to a large chamber where Zorath awaited them. The consul stood beside a raised platform, his gaze fixed on the humans with an inscrutable expression. "Welcome to the first of your trials," Zorath announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. "This test will assess your physical endurance and adaptability in extreme environments. You will be placed in a simulation designed to replicate the harshest conditions your planet has to offer. Only those who survive will proceed to the next trial." The unexpected ally. Ilara's breath caught as the shadowy figures closed in, their movements swift and silent. The jungle seemed to come alive with danger, each rustle of leaves and snap of branches amplifying the tension. But as the first of the figures emerged from the fog, she noticed something strange. These weren't predators. They were humanoid, their forms lithe and agile, clad in dark, flowing garments that blended with the shadows. The leader, a tall figure with a mask covering its face, held up a hand, signaling the others to halt. "Hold your fire," Ilara commanded, lowering her weapon slightly, though her muscles remained tense, ready to spring into action if necessary. The masked figure stepped forward, its movements graceful and deliberate. When it spoke, its voice was soft but carried an air of authority. "Deathworlders, we mean you no harm." Ilara narrowed her eyes, her mind racing. "Who are you?" The figure hesitated before reaching up to remove the mask. Underneath was a woman, her features strikingly human, though her skin had a slight metallic sheen, and her eyes were an unusual shade of violet. Ilara felt a surge of anger at the cold, clinical way Zorath spoke of their potential suffering. But she kept her emotions in check, knowing that any sign of weakness could be exploited. "We're ready," she said firmly, stepping forward. Zorath inclined his head. "Then let the trial begin." The platform beneath them began to glow, and suddenly, the chamber dissolved around them, replaced by a blindingly bright landscape. They found themselves standing in the middle of a vast desert, the sun beating down mercilessly from a cloudless sky. "Desert," Riker muttered, squinting against the glare. "Nice choice. Could have been worse, I suppose." "Stay focused," Ilara ordered, scanning the horizon. "There's more to this than meets the eye." As if on cue, the ground beneath them began to tremble, and a series of massive sandstorms erupted in the distance, hurtling towards them with terrifying speed. The temperature spiked, and the air became thick with dust, making it difficult to breathe. "Move, now," Ilara shouted, leading her team towards a cluster of rocks that offered some shelter. They huddled together as the sandstorm raged around them, the wind howling like a beast in pain. Minutes felt like hours as they endured the onslaught. Their suits were designed to withstand extreme conditions, but even so, Ilara could feel the heat sapping her strength, the grit scraping against her skin like needles. When the storm finally subsided, they were exhausted, but alive. Ilara looked around at her team, noting the determination in their eyes despite the harsh conditions. Zorath's voice echoed through the air once more, as if it came from the very sky itself. "Impressive. Many species have failed at this stage, but the trial is not over." Before Ilara could respond, the desert around them vanished, replaced by a dense jungle. The air was thick with humidity, and the sound of distant creatures filled the air. The ground beneath their feet was soft and uneven, making it difficult to maintain balance. "Great," Riker muttered, from frying pan to the fire. Ilara ignored the comment, focusing on the new environment. The jungle was alive with movement, the trees swaying as if in a breeze, though there was none. "This place is wrong," she whispered. "Stay close and watch your backs." As they ventured deeper into the jungle, the undergrowth became thicker, the trees pressing in on all sides. The temperature dropped sharply, and a strange fog began to rise from the ground, obscuring their vision. Suddenly, a piercing shriek echoed through the air, and they were surrounded by shadowy figures, their eyes glowing in the mist. Ilara drew her weapon, her heart pounding. "My name is Leora," she said. "I am one of the Gaxilan's experiments." The word hung in the air, heavy with implications. Riker shifted uneasily beside Ilara, clearly unnerved by the revelation. "Experiments?" Ilara echoed, suspicion lacing her tone. Leora nodded, her expression unreadable. "The Gaxilan have been studying various species for centuries, testing their limits, and seeking to create the perfect warrior. I am one of their successors, but I escaped their control." Ilara's heart pounded as she absorbed the information. "And now you're here, in this simulation. How?" "The Gaxilan's technology is advanced, but not infallible," Leora explained. "I found ways to manipulate their systems to enter their simulations undetected. I've been watching you, and I believe we have a common enemy." Ilara glanced at Riker, who gave a slight nod. It was clear they needed allies in this hostile environment, and Leora, despite her mysterious origins, seemed sincere. "What do you want from us?" Ilara asked, her tone cautious but curious. "To help you survive these trials, and in return, I want your help in escaping the Gaxilan's grip for good," Leora replied, her violet eyes gleaming with determination. "Together, we can expose their true nature and end their manipulations." Ilara studied Leora for a moment, weighing her options. There was something compelling about the woman, a mixture of strength and vulnerability that resonated with Ilara. Despite the risks, she knew they needed to trust someone, and Leora seemed their best chance. "All right," Ilara said, extending her hand. "We'll work together." Leora took her hand, a faint smile touching her lips. "You won't regret it, Captain Marks." The tension in the air eased slightly as they solidified their new alliance. But before they could strategize further, the ground beneath them shook violently, and the jungle around them began to warp and twist, as if reality itself was unraveling. "They've detected my presence," Leora said urgently. "We need to move, now." The group sprinted through the jungle, Leora leading the way with uncanny agility. The environment around them continued to shift, the trees morphing into jagged rock formations, the sky darkening as thunder rumbled in the distance. Suddenly, the ground opened up beneath them, and they plummeted into darkness. Ilara felt herself tumbling through empty space, her heart racing as she tried to orient herself. Just as she was certain they were about to crash, they were jolted to a stop, suspended in a vast, dimly lit cavern. Ilara's breath came in ragged gasps as she looked around. The cavern was filled with strange, bioluminescent plants, their soft glow casting eerie shadows on the walls. In the center of the chamber stood a massive, pulsating structure that looked like a heart made of crystal, its light pulsing in rhythm with a deep, resonant hum. Leora landed beside her, her expression grim. "This is the Gaxilan's core, the heart of their simulation technology. If we destroy it, we can disrupt their control over the trials and escape." Ilara nodded, determination surging through her. "Then let's finish this." But as they approached the core, the chamber was suddenly flooded with a blinding light. Zorath's voice boomed through the cavern, laced with fury. "You dare to defy that Gaxilan. You will be destroyed." The ground trembled as the walls began to close in, and the air grew thick with an oppressive force. But Ilara, with Leora and her team by her side, was no longer afraid. They had come too far to back down now. "Not today," Ilara muttered, raising her weapon. "This ends now." With a battle cry that echoed through the cavern, they charged towards the core, ready to take on whatever that Gaxilan threw at them. The final stand. The battle in the cavern was fierce, a chaotic clash of wills and technology. Ilara's team fought with every ounce of strength they had left, their bodies pushed to the limits of endurance. The Axelan's automated defenses came to life, firing beams of searing energy and releasing mechanical drones that swarmed around them like angry hornets. Leora moved like a shadow, her agility and precision unmatched. She leaped and twisted through the air, striking at the drones with a ferocity that made Ilara realize just how much she had underestimated the former experiment. But even as they fought, the core continued to pulse, its rhythm quickening, as if sensing its impending destruction. "Captain, we need to focus on that core," Riker shouted over the din, blasting a drone out of the sky. "I know," Ilara replied, the voice tight with concentration. "Leora, can you get us close enough to plant an explosive?" Leora nodded, her eyes narrowing with determination. "Follow me." She led them through the chaos, dodging beams and drones with an ease born of experience. Ilara and Riker provided cover, their weapons blazing as they cleared a path towards the core. The heat in the cavern was almost unbearable, the air thick with the smell of burning metal and ozone. As they neared the core, the ground began to shake violently, cracks spider webbing across the crystalline structure. Zorat's voice echoed through the chamber once more, filled with desperation. "You cannot win. The Axilan are eternal. You are nothing but primitive creatures, unworthy of survival." Ilara gritted her teeth, anger flaring in her chest. "We'll see about that." They reached the base of the core, where the pulsating light was almost blinding. Leora pulled out a small, cylindrical device from her belt, a high-yield explosive designed for maximum damage. "This should do the trick," she said, placing the device against the core and setting the timer. "How long?" Ilara asked, her voice taut with urgency. 60 seconds, Leora replied. "Enough time to get clear, but we'll need to move fast." Ilara nodded, adrenaline pumping through her veins. "Let's go." They turned and sprinted towards the exit, the core's pulsing growing more erratic with each passing second. The walls of the cavern began to collapse, chunks of rock and crystal crashing down around them. The sound was deafening, a cacophony of destruction that drowned out even the roar of the core. Just as they reached the entrance to the cavern, the timer on Leora's device hit 0. There was a moment of absolute stillness, a brief, heart-stopping pause in which time seemed to stretch infinitely. Then the core exploded. The blast was a shockwave of pure energy, tearing through the cavern with unimaginable force. Ilara felt herself lifted off the ground, flung through the air as the world around her disintegrated into a blinding white light. She hit the ground hard, the impact knocking the breath from her lungs. For a long moment, she lay there, disoriented and dazed, the world spinning around her. The sound of the explosion faded into a distant ringing in her ears, and she struggled to push herself up, her body aching with exhaustion. When the dust finally began to settle, she found herself lying on the floor of the Thulzar's chamber. The simulation had ended, the cavern and its dangers replaced by the cold, sterile environment of the Thailand ship. Ilara groaned as she got to her feet, her muscles protesting every movement. Riker was beside her, looking equally battered but alive. "We made it," he panted, his face a mix of relief and disbelief. Ilara nodded, her gaze sweeping the chamber. The core was gone, and with it, the Thazilan's control over the trials. But there was no sign of Zorath. "Where's Leora?" Before Riker could answer, a faint shimmer appeared in the center of the chamber, and Leora materialized, her form flickering slightly as if she were caught between two realities. "I'm here," she said, her voice tinged with a strange mix of triumph and sadness. "The core's destruction has freed me from the Thazilan's grip, but it's also destabilized my existence. I won't be able to stay in this form for much longer." Ilara's heart clenched at the realization. "Is there anything we can do?" Leora shook her head, her violet eyes softening. "No, But you've done more than I could have ever hoped. You freed me, and you've shown that Thailand that humanity is not to be underestimated. Ilara stepped forward, a lump forming in her throat. Thank you, Leora, for everything. Leora smiled, a bittersweet expression that tugged at Ilara's heart. It was an honor, Captain Marks. Remember what you've learned here. That Thailand are powerful, but they are not invincible. And neither are you. With those final words, Leora's form began to dissolve, her body fading into a cloud of shimmering particles that drifted upwards and disappeared. For a moment, Ilara stood there, staring at the spot where Leora had been, her emotions a tangled mess of sorrow, gratitude, and determination. Then slowly, she turned to Riker. As the remnants of the explosion's shockwave dissipated, the chamber fell into a tense silence. The Thailand's core, now nothing more than a scattering of debris, had left behind a fractured and unstable environment. The walls of the Thalzar trembled, their once imposing smoothness marred by the chaos. Ilara and Riker picked themselves up, the echoes of their last battle still ringing in their ears. The atmosphere was thick with the smell of burnt ozone and the remnants of the Thailand's high-tech defenses. They scanned the chamber, alert for any further threats. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the holographic projections of the Axilan began to fade, leaving behind a dim, ambient glow. The oppressive force that had filled the air earlier had lifted, replaced by an eerie calm. Ilara's comms unit crackled to life. Captain Marks, this is the Erebus. We're detecting significant disruptions in the Thailand vessel's systems. Are you all right? This is Captain Marks, Ilara replied, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. We've successfully destroyed the core. The Axilan's control over the simulations has been broken. We're on our way back. Understood. We'll initiate a boarding procedure to extract you, came the response. As Ilara and Riker made their way towards the docking bay, they encountered a few Thailand personnel, who seemed disoriented and bewildered by the sudden loss of their technology's control. Their attempts to impede the humans were half-hearted and easily overcome. Upon reaching the docking bay, Ilara paused to take a deep breath. The enormity of what they had accomplished settled in. They had not only survived the trials but had also dealt a significant blow to the Thailand's plans. The implications were immense. The docking bay doors slid open, revealing the familiar sight of the Erebus. Ilara and Riker were met by a team of engineers and security personnel, who quickly assessed their condition and began preparing for their departure. As they were about to board the Erebus, Ilara glanced back at the Thalzar. Despite the damage and the chaos, she couldn't help but feel a sense of respect for the Thailand's technological prowess. They had pushed humanity to its limits, but in doing so, had revealed their own vulnerabilities. On the bridge of the Erebus, Ilara took a moment to collect her thoughts. The crew was already buzzing with activity, preparing for their departure and analyzing the data from the mission. Riker approached her, his expression thoughtful. Captain, what do you think that Thailand will do next? Ilara shook her head, her eyes fixed on the viewport. They'll likely regroup and reassess. We've shown them that humanity is not to be underestimated. This encounter will have repercussions across the galaxy. The ship's engines roared to life, and the Erebus began to move away from the Thailand vessel. Ilara watched as the Thalzar receded into the distance, its once mighty presence now a symbol of their victory and a reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. The crew was silent as the ship navigated back to Earth, each person lost in their own thoughts. The trials they had faced were a testament to their resilience and strength, and Ilara knew that their actions would be remembered. As they approached Earth, the familiar sight of the planet filled the viewport. The blue and green swirled together, a beacon of hope and a reminder of everything they were fighting to protect. Ilara turned to her crew, a determined smile on her face. We faced incredible odds and come out on top, but this is just the beginning. There are more challenges ahead, and we'll face them together. We've proven ourselves to the Titan and to the galaxy. Let's show them that humanity is a force to be reckoned with. The crew cheered, their spirits lifted by Ilara's words. As the Erebus continued its journey home, Ilara felt a sense of accomplishment and pride. They had faced the unknown, conquered their fears, and emerged stronger than ever. And as the stars stretched out before them, Ilara knew that humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer defined by their limitations, but by their courage, their resilience, and their unyielding spirit. The Atzilan had learned a valuable lesson about Deathworlders, and so had humanity. In the vast expanse of space, they had made their mark, and their story was only just beginning.